Thank you all for your practice. I really enjoy silence. Something about it just so beautiful. And I actually just got back from a 4-day silent compassion meditation retreat. And it was an interesting experience. It always is. Retreats are always different, right? Like every retreat I've ever been on is unique in its own way, and every moment is unique in its own way, right? And it's just a beautiful experience. What a range of emotions that are felt on retreat, right? When we strip away all the distractions that we have available to us and we're immersed in silence, a lot can come up. And as I said, that experience isn't unique to me, but each experience in life itself is unique, and no moment is ever really the same. Moment to moment, life is always changing, and the thing that I love about this practice and that I love about the Dharma is its ability to meet us right where we're at. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, what your background is. It doesn't matter what color you are, what sex you are, what religion you are. The Dharma can meet you right where you're at. And that's really what it teaches us to do. It teaches us to meet life right where it's at. It teaches us to meet our experience, whatever it is, with open arms and an open heart. And just as the Buddha said in the Dhammapada, hatred is never appeased by hatred. By love alone is hatred appeased. So the more we try to push away from unpleasant experiences, the more we open ourselves up to inevitable suffering. Alan Watts called it the backwards law. Like the craving for a pleasant experience is in itself a negative experience, but accepting a negative experience as a negative experience is in itself a more positive experience. Which means that the more we push away from the experiences of life, the more we are going to suffer. It's funny, often when I give a talk, people come to me afterwards and they'll say, I needed that tonight. Like, it's exactly what I needed to hear in this moment. It's like, yeah, that's kind of by design, right? Like, that's the point of this practice, is it is available to everyone, and it's just, you're not different. Like, these are the teachings that can be heard by everyone because they're applicable to everyone. We're all going through it, basically. Everybody's having this human experience, and human struggles and human aspirations. We're all going to have difficulties. We're all going to have a lot of the same difficulties. So tonight I want to talk about the Dharma. I'd like to share some personal reflections of how it's shown up for me and the qualities of this Dharma that serve to benefit us all. And the first is just this universality of the Dharma. It transcends cultural boundaries, time, location. It transcends everything. It's a universal truth that embraces the diversity of the human experience. And the Dharma doesn't ask us to be anything. It's like nirvana, just come as you are. That's all it asks. See for yourself. It's a Pali word for that. It's ahipasika. See for yourself. Just come and see. There's no dogma involved with the Dharma. It doesn't ask us to believe anything. It just asks us to see for ourselves. Like, try it out, try it on, see how it fits, see if it's comfortable. And anyone that's ever actually tried the Dharma on for any length of time finds that it's very comfortable. At least that was my case. Ram Dass once said, the Dharma is the truth that each of us embodies, regardless of our background and our circumstance. And you can kind of see that represented in this room right now. We all have different stories. We have different goals and different jobs, different sexes, different races. But the Dharma always meets us right where we're at. And it acknowledges the human experience. And that experience is that sometimes life can and will be difficult. And that sometimes no matter who you are, no matter how much money you have, what you do for a living, you are going to suffer. And there's something beautiful about these teachings that the Buddha led with that. Like, he didn't say, I've got all the secrets to life figured out and I can tell you about it right now. It's like, hey, have you ever noticed life's kind of fucked up sometimes? Like, that's the first noble truth. Like, you ever notice life's kind of sucks sometimes? Like, yes, I did notice, actually. Like, thank you for acknowledging that. Like, how comforting is that? Like, I didn't feel so alone when I first heard that, right? Like, the longest time I felt like life was happening to me. Has anybody else ever felt like that? Like life was just happening to you and the universe was out to get you specifically? It's like, why me? Well, here's the secret. It's not just you. We're taught in these teachings that just by being born into this human body, we're going to come into contact with experiences that are going to be difficult. I talked about this a little bit last week when I talked about the 5 remembrances. And that's, that we're going to age, we are going to get sick, we are going to die. Everything that we hold dear to us will be taken away from us. And that our actions are the only thing that we leave behind. So our actions are very important. That one, everything we love and everything we hold dear will be taken from us. That one hit me really hard. And that's kind of where I was at when I found this practice. And actually, I'm not sure if I found the Dharma or the Dharma found me. But it met me right where I needed it, in the time that I needed it. I found this practice at a really dark time in my life. I was in jail, looking at a very long sentence. And I had effectively lost everything that I held dear. My family and friends had distanced themselves from me. I had lost everything that I owned. My girlfriend at the time, we were in active addiction together, and she had turned to sex work to support her habit while I was incarcerated. And it was hard. That was a very hard time for me. And I didn't really know what to do, but I found a book on a bookshelf called We're All Doing Time. And it basically encouraged you to treat the time while you were incarcerated like it was your ashram or your monastery. And it gave some basic mindfulness of breathing techniques and some yoga asanas. And it was like, treat this time like your monastery. And I said, okay, sounds like a good idea. What else am I going to do while I'm here? So I can get into the shady shit, or I can stay in my own lane and just watch the breath. And that's what I did. I just started watching the breath, and that really helped to quiet my mind. This mind that was just caught up in so much turmoil over this situation that was happening to me in that moment. And I'll forever be grateful for that. I'll forever be grateful for whatever put that book on that bookshelf at that exact time that I was bored and looking for that book, because I wouldn't be sitting here right now had that not happened just the way it did. And it's because I'm so grateful for that it's why I do what I do. It's why I show up here every Monday night and I try to share these teachings with whoever wants to hear them. Because they are so precious and they are so valuable. The Dharma's given me the tools to change my life for the better. And if I found that if you show up for the Dharma, it shows up for you. No matter where you're at. No matter what you may be feeling. Because life is a tapestry of emotions, and the Dharma acknowledges and embraces the reality of that. If nothing, it does that. It says, hey, I know you might feel a little fucked up right now, but that's okay. You're allowed to feel that way. In our society, we're taught that if you're not happy, that there's something wrong with you. We're given this idea that we're supposed to be happy all the time. And the Dharma's like, no, that's not true. You're allowed to feel sad. You're allowed to feel angry. It's okay. And it's still okay to love yourself no matter what you're feeling. As we face joy and sorrow or confusion, the Dharma provides us with the insight tools to navigate this inner world and our inner experience. The Buddha emphasized the importance of understanding the nature of suffering and its causes. He taught that by developing mindfulness and compassion, we can transform our emotions and find equanimity. And for me, that's what it's all about, right? Like not being reactive. Because I was a really reactive person for a very long time, most of my life. I didn't have any chill, like zero chill. But this has helped me with that. I am a much more relaxed person than I used to be. We can't really count on much in life, but one thing we can count on is that things are going to change. And so there's no point in reacting to any situation in an aggressive or negative way when all situations are constantly changing. When we sit and we observe our body and the sensations of the body, we observe emotions arising and passing away. We observe thoughts arising and passing away. We find that from moment to moment, everything is constantly changing. From the world around us to the inner landscape, quite literally everything is always changing. And again, the Dharma meets us right there. In this changing landscape, with whatever emotion we're feeling in that moment, it meets us right where we're at. And like I was saying earlier, when we're on retreat, we have all the distractions removed. We're forced to sit with the mind as it is, without the distractions. And I don't know if you've noticed, but if you're anything like me, then your mind loves a good distraction. It's like anything it can get to get away from itself. It's like my mind does not want to just observe itself. It's chaos in there. It's like, please keep me away from that. Anything I can do to stay away from that. Let's watch some TV, or let's read a book, or let's get on the phone, or what's so-and-so doing? Let's call them up and have a conversation. Like literally anything. Like my mind will find an excuse to not sit in silence. Blaise Pascal was a French philosopher. He said that all of humankind's suffering stems from man's inability to sit in a room quietly by himself. And I believe that, like for sure. And interestingly enough, that's exactly how we can learn to meet our problems directly. Is by sitting in a room silently. Not necessarily by ourselves. We can sit with a group of people, but just learning to sit with our own thoughts. What a novel concept, right? Especially here. The world is a smorgasbord of addictive, distracting behaviors. There's no shortage of them. They're not hard to find. But it's by observing the mind and just learning to be with whatever comes up in a compassionate way that we can come to a place of peace. What's in the way is the way. The obstacles are the path. Each of us has a unique life story. We all have different roles and responsibilities and challenges that we'll experience. And the Dharma recognizes that. And it respects that. It respects our individual circumstances. Ajahn Chah said, the Dharma is not separate from your life. It's right there. It's not just about sitting on a cushion. It's about how you live your life. So whether we're monastics or householders, professionals or parents, the Dharma guides us in integrating its teachings into our specific situations. And mindfulness gives us the space to make wiser decisions. It gives us this clarity of mind that a lot of people really just never experience. And when we just slow down, we get that space. And we get that sacred pause where we have choice. When we get wrapped up in the stories of the mind, we're often so reactive that we remove any sense of free will or choice from our lives. We're ruled by our emotions. But this practice of mindfulness, this practice of just slowing down, gives us that gap and gives us options so that we can respond rather than react. It's a practice and it's a training, and it's not something that happens overnight. You don't just wake up one day and everything's fixed and you're all better. I wish it was like that easy. I wish I could just wave a magic wand and be like, everybody's better. Everybody's at peace. But it doesn't work that way. This is a gradual path, and it's a gradual progression. The Dharma understands that personal transformation takes time, and it takes patience. I've been meditating for about 10 years now. But at first, when I was learning to do this in jail, I didn't take it quite as seriously as I do now. I didn't really deep dive into the practice until maybe like 6 years ago or so. That's when I really started getting more involved with it. And as the years go by, in the past 6 years, I get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Which is when I really started to embrace this practice and really read suttas and listen to Dharma talks and really make this a part of my life, not just a passing fancy. That's really when I began to start to see my life change. I saw that at the core of my problems was my reaction to them. I started really seeing the law of cause and effect in action, and that I was creating the majority of my own suffering. I was pretty hard on myself because of that. I couldn't forgive myself for the mistakes of the past and all the ways that I had screwed my life up. I certainly couldn't forgive myself for the harm that I had caused the people that were closest to me. But the Dharma was very forgiving. And the more I applied these teachings, the more I was able to eventually forgive myself. Because the Dharma, it always meets us with kindness. Acknowledging that each of us progresses at our own rate. The Buddha compares the path to enlightenment to the growth of a banyan tree. And just as it gradually expands its branches and shade, the Dharma encourages us to take small steps and to cultivate positive qualities and to learn from our experiences. It reminds us that progress, no matter how small, is still progress. And with self-compassion, we can embrace the imperfection and persevere on this path to awakening. The Buddha grew up in India 2,600 years ago or so, and this was an agricultural community. It's 2,600 years ago in India. There wasn't a lot of industry going on at that time. So you'll find that in the teachings of the Buddha, there's a lot of terms that are very synonymous with terms for agriculture and farming. Only makes sense. He grew up in a farming community. In the Pali Canon, which are the oldest texts attributed to the Buddha directly, he didn't write them. It was an oral tradition, and eventually they were written down. But there was no word for meditation. It just didn't exist. There was a word, bhavana, which means to cultivate, or cultivation. And so with this practice, that's what we're doing. We're cultivating. We're planting seeds of kindness and seeds of forgiveness and seeds of compassion. And just like growing a plant, if we want to have healthy fruit, it's going to take some effort. And we have to plant the seeds, and we have to give them the right nutrients and give them water, and we have to give them enough sunlight, and we have to nurture them with care if we want to have a bountiful harvest. But even with all of that, even with all the care and the right light and the right fertilizer and enough water, it still takes time. But no matter how slow things seem to be going, they are changing. There's no escaping that. And this practice invites us to embrace the impermanent nature of all things. As the Buddha said in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, all conditioned things are impermanent. And this practice teaches us to let go of our attachments and our expectations. If we're clinging to what is transient, will always cause us suffering. When our happiness is derived from impermanent things, what does that say about our happiness? And that's kind of what we meditate for. In this practice, in this Theravada lineage in particular, we meditate to gain insight into the three characteristics. We gain wisdom or panya through our own direct experience of the impermanent, impersonal, imperfect nature of reality. We begin to see clearly through our own experience that life is inherently difficult. But we also see that those difficulties aren't permanent and that they're not personal. Everybody's going through the same stuff. We all might enjoy different things, but we all suffer the same way. And everybody's going through it. Ram Dass once said, suffering is part of our training program for becoming wise. And the older I get, the more that rings true. The Dharma meets us in the midst of life's uncertainties, guiding us to find stability and peace within the ever-changing world. It empowers us to embrace impermanence and cultivate gratitude for the present moment. And this fosters this liberation from craving and clinging and attachment. And that ultimately is what leads to the end of suffering. The Dharma is not this distant concept or an abstract philosophy. It's a living, compassionate presence that meets us right where we're at. It offers us comfort in times of difficulty, inspiration in times of doubt, and guidance in times of confusion. And so we can take refuge in this Dharma. And we can take refuge in our own capacity to awaken. And we can take refuge in each other, in Kalyanamita, our spiritual friends. They're also on this path.